So TD Bank has dropped a bombshell report with regards to the declining productivity levels in Canada. So I'm going to cover that report in this video where we're going to discuss if there are any industries where it is actually growing the productivity in Canada, and what are the other industries which is actually pulling the economic growth downwards. And in that report, they actually compared the productivity from the previous decades to the current decade. Okay, so if you look at this chart, you can see that in the past decades we were growing. We were not growing enormously, but our productivity level was at least at a healthy level, right? It was 1.6% in 1990s, and then it actually declined in the next decade, but it was still above 1%. Okay, and then we actually grew in the decade after. So from 2009 to 2019, our average annual GDP, the real GDP growth, was around 1.25%. But look at the current decade, which is 2019 to 2023. Okay, it is almost zero, right at the bottom. So that means we are not growing our productivity, our real GDP at all. Okay, which is concerning. And if you look at, okay, what is really happening here? So this chart actually shows you that on the services side, because Canada is a services-based economy, majority of it, on the services side, we are growing a little bit. Okay, we kind of are, there was a contraction in the productivity in the services sector, but it's still positive. But look at the goods producing industry that actually went negative. So we were growing at 1.4% in the previous decade. Now we actually went negative 1.2%. And if we further drill down in terms of the goods producing economy, we realize that the only industry that was actually growing at a significant or at a decent level was agricultural, forestry, fishing, and hunting, for obvious reasons. Okay, we have a lot of resources, natural resources here. So that industry was growing at around 4.4%, for example. In the current decade, it has actually declined. So now it is growing at 2%, but it is still growing. But the rest of the industries, mining, utilities, manufacturing, and look at construction. Construction was barely keeping its head above zero in the last decade. Now it is outright negative 2.5. Okay, so ask yourself, Canada has been relying on the residential real estate investment, but the construction sector has been unproductive in the last at least 2 decades. Okay, and if you don't understand what is productivity means the efficiency of the output. That means how much we are investing in terms of resources and labor work hours, and how much are we producing as an output. And if you calculate the efficiency, if it is not positive, it's unproductive. So what happens when there is no productivity growth in Canada? Well, if that happens, that means our wages will not grow. So there will be stagnation in our wages. If our wages are not going to grow, that means we have lower quality of life. We won't be able to afford things that we do today. Okay. If our wages are going to be stagnant, which means less taxes, which means less revenue for government. If there is less revenue for government, that means they won't be able to spend money on infrastructure, public services, and so on and so forth. Okay. So overall, society will basically suffer because of lack of productivity. There's not much money circulating in the economy, and there's no incentive for us to work hard because our wages are stagnant. Okay, and overall we are going to suffer as a nation, and the government will have to raise taxes because you may be able to survive in a limited wage that you get, but government cannot. Government will have to make up the lack of revenue that they are suffering. Either they have to raise taxes, or they have to run fiscal deficit, which is going to be inflationary, which is going to debase your currency, and overall society will suffer in that environment. So right now in the construction industries, we are putting a lot more resources in terms of work hours, and we are not producing enough output to justify that input cost in terms of the labor worked hours. That's how I can explain to you simply. And further we look into this report, we can see that the amount of labor work that goes into the construction industry has gone up since 2010 onwards. And the amount of hours worked in the manufacturing sector has declined. So imagine in the age of digital technologies where everything has to be more productive, our construction sector is declining significantly in terms of productivity. So some of you will blame pandemic for that, and this report also blamed pandemic for that as well. Okay, but pandemic did not happen in Canada alone. Okay, if you look at the US, they actually outperformed our economic growth in the same environment that we have been since pandemic. Okay, they also had stimulus driven artificial economic growth. We also had the same challenge, but then they actually recovered after that. The US has outperformed from 2 to 3 times of the economic growth compared to us. In information and cultural industries, professional services, technical services. If you look at the hospitality and leisure, US outgrew us by 10 times. Okay, in the finance sector, this is the only sector that we can proudly say that we outperform US from an economic growth perspective. So if you want me to tell you only one sector that has outperformed since pandemic, that is finance sector. So if you want to stay in a sector where it is still growing compared to other sectors, it's finance. So go find a job in bank or insurance or any financial vertical. You will do good. So there you go, guys. Okay, so productivity is declining and there is no line of sight, at least for now. Okay, there has to be drastic changes to be done at the government level in order to incentivize the investment, the competition, remove the bureaucracy, remove the red tapes. We need less government, not more government. We need to get government out of the way for private sector to grow. The government doesn't produce anything. The government can only make bureaucracy, makes things complex and useless for us. So we need less government. We need to get government out of our way from free market to figure out how they can produce goods and services at an efficient level, because the free market doesn't perform on government stimulus. It needs to see fundamentals in terms of input costs, output costs, efficiency. It can only produce stuff if it is efficient to produce. So there is a lot to happen in order to bring this train wreck back on the track. There is no silver bullet. There is no one single answer how to fix it. A lot to happen, and it will take another decade to fix things, if not more. Anyway, you let me know what you think about that. Put your comments down below. Let me know if you like this video. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care. If you are an investor in the US, in Canada, or in Europe, and you are considering investing into Dubai real estate market, this video is for you, because we have a platform called Stake, which allows you to invest into the residential real estate market and start earning rental income right away without going through a lengthy documentation process or coming up with a heavy down payment. Stake is built upon the concept of crowdfunding. So it is democratizing the entire investment strategy and allows you to own a single unit of the entire investment portfolio. So you don't have to own the entire property, right? You can be part of the pool that can actually own a piece of property, a piece of real estate. So that allows you to start with as low as 2,000 dirhams, and you can slowly ramp up. So as you start investing into it, you can not only own a bit of real estate, but you also get a portion of the rental income on monthly basis. So it's a passive investment strategy, diversifying your portfolio from traditional North American or European markets into Dubai, which is hustling and bustling and growing very fast, and allows you to build your wealth over time. So don't delay. There is a link down there in the description. If you click on this, it will give you free 200 dirhams in your account right away to start with, and you can thank me later.